Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach to everyone. I am going to start my talk today by making an admission about something that I think most rabbis would agree with, maybe not all, but most rabbis would agree with, and that is that I have a love-hate relationship with Yizkor. And why do I have a love-hate relationship with Yizkor? On the one hand, I think Yizkor is very important. After all, we must always remember the ones that we have loved who have passed on before us. On the other hand, Yizkor has become something in the Jewish community that I don't think it was intended to be. As we know, many people come to services just for Yizkor. It's not what it was supposed to be. Yizkor was supposed to be a part of the service, not the purpose of the service. It's especially upsetting when you realize that we are a people who rejected a community that worshiped death, the community of Egypt, to create a community that worshiped life. We are a people whose rabbis read the words in the Torah, "V'chai bahem," and you shall live by them, and made the statement, the very exceptional statement, especially for those days, that the commandments God gave us were commandments we were to live by and not to die by. We are a people who believe that out of 613 mitzvot, we are not just allowed to, but obligated to violate 610 of them in order to save our lives or the lives of someone else. And yet Yizkor sometimes has taken this religion and made it a religion that was not about life, but about death. So how do we maintain the Jewish value of life while maintaining the dignity of Yizkor? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked, because I have an answer. And the answer starts with a story that I want to tell you. In 1998, I was a rabbi on March of the Living. For those of you who are unfamiliar with March of the Living, it is a trip that takes 11th and 12th grade students to Poland for a week, where they see the death camps, and then to Israel for a week. And we were in a town called Tokochin. Tokochin is a town in Poland which before the war had 3,000 Jews, all of whom were killed during the Holocaust. The synagogue of Tokochin remained standing. And we were in Tokochin, there were about 400 students and a bunch of chaperones. And we were told the entire history of the synagogue and the entire history of the people of Tokochin. And then there was a moment of silence in memory of the people who were killed in Tokochin. And that moment of silence was broken not by the chaperones, not by the adults, but by some of the children starting to sing very softly, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, then louder, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. And then in a few moments, in this synagogue that had not been used since 1945, 500 Jewish boys and girls were holding hands and singing as loud as they could and as proudly as they could, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. And in this synagogue that had represented death, we were screaming loudly, the nation of Israel lives. And I kid you not, I saw the ghosts of the people of Tokochin smiling down upon us. Yizkor only has meaning if our memories of the past compel us to build a future. Now, I know it's very common to talk about how there is no future for the Jewish community, there's assimilation, there's intermarriage, and all of this. But there's also good news in the Jewish community. Today, there are more kosher restaurants in the United States than there have been in the history of this country, which means someone's eating there. Between 1980 and now, more books on Judaism have been written in the English language than since the beginning of time in 1980, which means someone's reading them. The rabbinical schools are overflowing with students. My father's rabbinical school class had 8 students in it. This year, JTS will be ordaining 53 rabbis. The future is not as bleak as we would like it to seem. And remember, if there's one thing Jews are great at, Judaism isn't, but Jews are, it's being pessimistic. You know the Jewish telegram, start worrying, details to follow. But we need not worry. If we use Yizkor as an inspiration to build the future, if we use the memories of the people we love to recommit ourselves to making Judaism about life and about love and about optimism, all of the things that are in our tradition, and yet somehow we tend to forget them. Today is Shmini Atzeret. The tradition tells us that Shmini Atzeret was created because God was enjoying our company so much on Sukkot that God was saying to us, tarry a little longer, stay with me just a little longer. The way to make the memories of the people we love stay with us just a little longer is to provide the world with a Judaism of substance, of optimism, and of positivity. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.